Vladimir Jabotinsky is one of the most enigmatic, influential and controversial figures in the history of Zionism. A journalist, cultural critic, translator, novelist, poet and politician, his accomplishments in every one of these fields would suffice for a distinguished career on its own. He started his career as a nonconformist journalist and aspiring Russian language poet and playwright in the cosmopolitan Fin-de-siècle Odessa. But in the course of 1902-1903, he became drawn to the Zionist movement, gradually rising to a position of one of the promising leaders of Russian Zionism. During the First World War, he was working as a war correspondent of Central Russian newspaper and was among the initiators and organizers of Jewish military regiments in the British Army. And as an officer of the regiment, he participated in the British conquest of Palestine. In the early 1920s, he was among the members of the Executive Committee of the World Zionist Organization, but his disagreement with Chaim Weizmann's position on compromise regarding the formulation of British policy in Palestine brought about his vocal resignation in 1923. After his resignation, a group of admirers and supporters started consolidating around him, which led to the foundation of the oppositional revisionist Zionist movement in 1925. Parallel to his political activity, Jabotinsky continued writing and publishing new stories, novels and essays, mainly in Russian, but also in English and Yiddish. Jabotinsky himself was extremely aware of his public image and the way his legacy is formed and remembered. The first collection of his feuilletons was published in Russian in 1913, when he was 33 years old. He continued to edit and supervise the republications of his selected writings in Russian in 1922 and 1930, in English in 1925 and in Hebrew in 1936. In these editions, he recategorized some works from fiction to essay and vice versa, and massively edited the selected works to adapt them to the zeitgeist and his updated political positions. Unfortunately, there is not yet a full collection of Jabotinsky's writings. Moreover, the majority of the existing collections are organized by the thematic principle, which allows the editors to create the illusion of coherency in Jabotinsky's worldview that could not have persisted if the works were read in their historical context. Jabotinsky's main language as an author was Russian, but over the course of the years he also wrote in Italian, Hebrew, Yiddish, German, French, English, Polish and other languages. Thus, each edition of his writings demands the knowledge of these multiple languages and the use of translations. Many of his articles were written under different pseudonyms and are still unknown to scholars. Many of original editions of Jabotinsky's articles and the majority of his letters are scanned and assembled online at the website of the Jabotinsky Institute.
As it has already been said, Vladimir Жаботинский was brilliant at languages. So being a child, he was already able to speak 3 languages: Yiddish, which he heard on the streets, Russian, so his sister taught him some Russian, and Hebrew. So Yeshua Haneravnitsky, who was a Hebrew publisher and editor, taught Vladimir and his sister some Hebrew. And later on, Vladimir learned himself 7 languages and actually translated works into these languages. So they were French, German, and several Slavic languages. Interestingly enough, Vladimir Jabotinsky's classmate was Kornei Chukovsky, who was a famous Russian poet, writer, and literary critic, journalist, and a translator as well. And they were not only good friends, they were also partners of fate. They were both expelled from the gymnasium for writing a pamphlet in which the headmaster of this gymnasium was mocked. But Vladimir Jabotinsky didn't worry about that for long, and without a second thought he moved to Italy, where he was able to learn Italian, and later on he translated Divine Comedy by Dante into Hebrew and other poems by other Italian poets. And Matvey Geze, a Jewish writer, publicist, journalist, theatricologist, and literary theorist, he especially admires Vladimir Jabotinsky's translation of François Villon's Ballad of Ladies of Time Gone By, stating that it is simply brilliant. And so that poets who know the translation made by Vladimir Жаботинский do not even try to translate it, because it is impossible to surpass him and come up with anything better. So, and being a Zionist, in 1904, Vladimir Жаботинский translated an epic poem in the city of Slaughter by Jewish poet Chaim Bialik, which is a powerful statement of anguish at the situation of the Jews. So, and of course, it is impossible not to mention one of the best and well-known translations made by Vladimir Жаботинский. So it is The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe. And Vladimir Жаботинский translation was published in a literary magazine, Чтец Declamator, and if we translated it into English, it would sound something like reciter. It was signed with his literary pseudonym Atlalena, and this translation has become one of the most popular translations, and it was even included into Russian textbooks. So a Russian writer and poet, Nina Berberova, said that the translation of The Raven by Vladimir Жаботинский is many times better than the ones made by Valery Brusov and Konstantin Balmont, though the last one has its own advantages. So the translation made by Vladimir Жаботинский is remarkable for its accuracy, even though the translation does not always exactly follow Edgar Allan Poe's text. So Vladimir Жаботинский manages to deliver the main idea and the message of the poem, and he was able to create the dark atmosphere of hopelessness Edgar Poe created in his poem. So Vladimir Жаботинский's translation of The Raven is very artistic, full of different literary devices and stylistic devices, which make the translation very expressive and, as a consequence, very impressive. So The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe is a narrative of a young man who is bereaved or worried by the death of the woman he loved, so he compulsorily constructs self-destructive meaning around a raven's repetition of the word nevermore, and until he finally despairs of being reunited with his beloved Lenore in another world. So The Raven is a ballad of 18 six-line stanzas, and we would like to recite the three last stanzas of this poem. So we will recite it in English, and then the translation of it made by Vladimir Жаботинский. So, prophet said I, thing of evil, prophet, stealeth bird or devil, by that heaven that bends above us, by that God we both adore. Tell the soul with sorrow laden, if within the distant Aiden it shall clasp a radiant maiden whom the angels name Lenore. Clasp a ray and radiant maiden whom the angels name Lenore. Quoth the Raven, nevermore.
«Адский дух или тварь земная», — повторил я, замирая, — «ты, пророк, во имя неба говори. Там, где рай наш легендарный, там найду ли я благодарной душу девы лучезарной, взятой Богом в Божий хор, душу той, кого Ленорой именует Божий хор». Каркнул ворон, «Nevermore».
Be that word of sign of parting, bird of wind, I shrieked up starting. Get thee back into the tempest and the night's Plutonian shore. Leave no back plume as a token of that lie thy soul hath spoken. Leave my loneliness unbroken, quit the bust above my door. Take thy beak from out my heart and take thy form from off my door. Quoth the Raven, nevermore.
Если так, то вон нечистый, в царство ночи вновь умчись ты, гневно крикнул я, вставая. Этот черный твой убор для меня в моей кручине стал эмблемой лжи отныне. Дай мне снова быть в пустыне, прочь, верни душе простор, не терзай, не рви мне сердце, прочь, умчися на простор, каркнул ворон, nevermore.
And the raven, never flitting, still is sitting on the pallid bust of Pallas just above my chamber door. And his eyes have all the seeming of a demon's that is dreaming, and the lamplights o'er him streaming throws his shadow on the floor. And my soul from out that shadow, floating on the floor, shall be lifted nevermore.
И сидит с тех пор он, неподвижный черный ворон, над дверьми, на белом бюсте. Так сидит он до сих пор, злыми взорами блистая. Верно, так глядит, мечтая демон. Тень его густая, густо пала на ковер. И душе из этой тени, что ложится на ковер, не подняться. Nevermore. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. So Vladimir Жаботинский, as it has already been said today, was a very super talented, as you said it, and he was also extraordinary, versatile and unique person, and we, I guess, will have a chance to get to know about him more as our dear professors and our guests will go on. And as for translation, Vladimir Жаботинский made a great contribution into this field in numerous languages, and this contribution is hard to overestimate. So thanks to him, today we have brilliant and outstanding translations of different poems, and not only poems, into different languages. So thank you very much for your attention.